What's up, guys? Welcome back to the Bianconeri Zone. Welcome back to another podcast. Let's call it a podcast. It's gonna be a two-parter. So this is the first part. The second part will be a preview, but that will drop later in the week, probably Thursday. But in this video, we are gonna talk obviously about the Empoli game and the controversy. Let me call it controversy. I would say controversy, but it's just different of opinions, and it kind of exploded into controversy. We're gonna talk about decisions being made, not being made. Post game comments, all that thing, what impact it could have on the team, basically as well. And then we're gonna throw in a topic about pressure at different clubs because I got cooked a little bit, or like I didn't get cooked. We have different opinions on a topic, but with me
I
is
think the wording was what the issue
I
was.
think the wording is, and I will
Yeah,
explain what the wording like and
yeah.
which context I put out the tweet. But whatever, I need to say off Twitter. I need to listen to my followers. But with me is Alberto. First of all, how are you doing on this fine Sunday evening now?
I'm doing all right. I would have been better with the 3 points yesterday, obviously, but I'm still feeling okay with us, our chances, and everything, which we will get into. It's always a pleasure. I really enjoy this collab and the mixes that we do, obviously, between the two channels. We've gotten great feedback, so I'm happy to be here, man. Thank you as always.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. Let's jump straight into it. I will ask you just in a nutshell, like just not really going into details about the decisions. Empoli, we dropped points. Um, I saw the I saw your short on Milik and all that. So how do you come out of that game? Is disappointing? Like, are you disappointed, or is that just a very basic word? Is it a bit worse than just being disappointed?
Well, in the short, I still feel strongly about no player should ever put their team in that position, understanding the scenario, the situation you're in, the challenge in general happening at midfield. It's just not necessary. It's just not necessary. So ultimately, the highest percentage of blame I put on is Milik. But today we covered in our show kind of like I do also have criticisms of Max that come out of that because leading into this game, he was playing with fire. And I don't think he would have got burnt in a normal circumstance. But
Yeah,
when you lose a guy in the 15th minute, these are not normal circumstances. But he was playing in a fire in a sense that something we all spotted for a couple games are that Miretti and Kostic on the left side is not strong. It's not stable, and it is like a hole, and it's not balanced across the lineup. But he made his decision, and ultimately, it did kind of hurt us. And Miretti is still kind of going through similar struggles he kind of always has for us. And I think as that game grew on, Max, it was kind of staring us all dead in the eye that ball retention and also somebody with the ability to dribble stronger is needed and was required. And I think he has options at his disposal. When you look at guys that are utilities like Weah,
yeah,
Cambiaso, and Versatile, and even Yildiz and Iling Jr., I don't think he acted quick enough. We still found ourselves in a 1-0 lead, but after that goal, everything we were seeing leading up to that still said we needed help in possession, in ball retention, and just be able to stretch Empoli more. And we weren't doing that. I think some changes should have been made at half. And even though we were 1-0, maybe react before that goal goes in against you. But I think it's shared. Max does share some of the criticism there, but ultimately, man, we can't have veterans, experienced players put your team in a situation like that 15 minutes into a game that should have been a straightforward one. So ultimately, I said it in my tweet. Milik's a donkey, but tomorrow he can be a hero, and that's sports. You know what I mean? You could
um,
go from zero to hero in one match in sports, but yesterday that was unacceptable for me. But that's kind of my thoughts in a nutshell.
um, let me. Oh, I have a question, but because we talked about Milik, like let's bring Milik, or like I said, and I still feel strong. Like I'm still standing behind that tweet. I said he's not starting a game for me this season again. If we are in a title race, he's an experienced player. I need to lie. I think he's 31, 30 years old, 31 ish.
I
Uh,
thought, yeah, I think 32, something like that.
even
Yeah.
that. Somebody said he will learn from this. I'm like, if that was Miretti or Yildiz to do that, I was like, he's gonna learn from it. To make that decision, to make that tackle against the opponent you're playing in the moment of the game, on the area of the pitch, like it made no sense.
Yeah.
I have a feeling you do not really grasp the moment of the season ahead of a big massive game. You didn't like, maybe it's too much emotions, which is also not good. Like you need to control it. And then post game, I look at Vlahovic, I'm like, he knows we couldn't have dropped, like dropping points against Empoli at home at this moment in time is a no go. Like he was pissed. Like, and Pinzoli and Perin needed to kind of calm him down, but he went straight back in because he knew this is, yeah, like it feels like an L because
Yeah.
it's Empoli. Like Empoli, I don't want to disrespect teams, but they're really poor side. Like they have actually no quality in that team. Like they're really bad. Like usually there are relegation sides. I look at them and I'm like, okay. I look at Empoli and I'm like, or Salernitana the same way. I'm like, "Ah, you're not that good. We should have won that game, but that's something else. But with Milik, when I said that, I still stand that. You're not starting a game for me. I need to be very desperate. I need to have all players out. Then you're starting a game, basically, for me. Because
Yeah.
you cannot do that. You just
He's
can't.
actually 29. I just looked it up.
Oh, that's
I'm
unbelievable.
surprised. But regardless, I said the same thing. Whether you're 20 years old, 19, or 30, you just don't do that. You have to be
Yeah,
smarter. And as far as not starting him again this season, I mean, that is just a killer. That is an absolute killer. And yeah, it does affect the trust that you have in guys. Like
yeah.
I would never, it's unacceptable from anybody that does it. But like when you're a veteran and you do that, and for such selfish reason, like you lost the ball, you're pissy about it, and you're going to go in like that. What are you doing? And the truth is, that's not the first time Milik has done challenges
I
like that.
wanted to say that as well. It wasn't the first
Yeah,
time.
it's not the
No.
first time. And he's got to smarten up and wake up. And now we got Keane leaving on loan. And it's like, we got a little bit of a, like Vlahovic is going to have to play a 90 against Inter.
Oh,
There's
yeah.
no,
Yeah.
there's no way around it,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. He's going to need to play the full 90 minutes uh, against, uh, against Inter. Really quickly before we go further in the Milik one and like like everything that kind of came along with it, do you think we should have won that game even with 10 men against Empoli? Because I'm from that opinion. I know it's 75 minutes, but
Yeah.
considering the opponent, consider we win 1-0 up, and the way we conceded a goal, it was a very poor goal to concede. There was no pressure, and it was for that, like for a good 10, 15 minutes, we allowed Empoli just to keep possession in around the box. And I was like, one deflected shot is enough. Just put some sort of pressure on them. Like at one point, I know you sit back a little bit, I get it, but at one point you need to say, okay, this is it. And that point shouldn't be our 16 box, in my opinion. But I came out of that game, I'm like, we should have won it even with 10 men. Like if we were actually that team, you beat Empoli even with 10 men at home at this moment in time. You just get it over the line somehow. And we didn't, and I think that's kind of more worrying for me a little bit, rather than not winning in general. Like if we didn't win with 11, I would be very pissed, but with 10 I was like, okay, now I need to have more, the little bit more, bit of extra that puts you really in that title race.
Yeah.
No matter what happens, you find a way to win it. And actually we were not even close to finding a way to win it after 1-1. Like,
No, no. And that's just like I was saying. I mean, the balance it just kind of shifted. And like I said, even though we got that goal, that scrappy goal in the corner there, you could see that our game still needed to
yeah,
be balanced out. We needed more possession. And a lot of us were saying it. Like, I mean, we're watching the game live there and we're saying, we need a second. Like, we can't sit the way this game was going, because Empoli, when they first went up, I gotta say, they weren't pressing us very hard. They weren't really testing
yeah,
us. And I said, you know what? We can risk something to get this goal. Like, we need to risk a little bit more. We can bring in a Yildiz and try and get after this. And I would have shifted Cambiaso. Like you gotta fix that balance. Like I said, he played with fire in the starting lineup, but when you're down one man, it is critical to correct any holes that you may have. And my one criticism, Max, is I don't think the adjustments were there, and I think changes should have made at the half. And ultimately, yeah, I'm kind of a split on this whether you should still get the result. I think we were still fully capable of getting the result, yes, but it is again, it's difficult no matter who you're
Yeah,
playing when you're down a man, and that's why I say I just think it came down to adjustments. I think we were fully capable of getting that, and when you're 1-0 up, you have to make sure that that balance is there. I didn't feel confident in sitting back how deep we were sitting. And I was saying, we need to get more ball possession. We need to still push back and push that field down and stretch them out and keep them at least honest. And we didn't do that. We got way too comfortable. Remember the last time we talked? It feels like every time we talk, we say the same thing. And that is this team is too comfortable on
yeah,
one goal. And
yep.
I understand that you're down a man, but we had nothing for possession or being able to retain the ball, even drawing fouls. Like we were doing nothing, and it was playing with fire, and we got stung, unfortunately. And now it changes things drastically now moving forward. So it was it's a big one. It's a big one. They're going to say that it's not, and we could still move on, but it is a big one. It changes things. Is it all over?
No.
Absolutely not. Like the race is not over. It's not like end of the world type scenario, but it is one that maybe depending how tight it is going down the stretch, you might come back and say, damn, we really, really messed this one up here. So hopefully for Milik, it doesn't come down to that, because I'm telling you, I don't have patience for stuff like that, man. I really don't. I really don't, you know?
um,
And
yeah.
everybody was comparing the mistake from, Buffon,
No, no,
whatever.
no.
That's completely different for me, man.
Like I saw that, I was like, I'm not gonna do, like, we're not gonna compare the two players. Like I'm not even gonna entertain that. I'm not gonna do it. You know, I'm just like I don't even want to entertain that thought. Because it's how do like I don't want to call out anyone because I don't know. Like I saw tweets coming by, so I don't know who said that. Like it's just that somehow, some way in this fan base, there's a large group. No matter what will go wrong, they will find a way to make it sound okay. And I'm like, it's okay to call certain things out. You don't always need to be rosy and positive because you're not going to improve like that as a team. If you sit there and be like, it's all good, you're lying. It wasn't all good. Like we saw it. Like we saw what happened. So I'm not going to do that. But on Milik, um, the big question, was it a mistake to start him? And when I asked that question, should Milik be good enough to beat Empoli at home? Yes. Like that's no doubt at all. If we stay with 11, we win that game. Like we win it. And probably Milik will get a goal. Like, to be honest, he will probably get a goal as
Yeah.
well. I saw the predictor lineup from Di Marzio an hour before kickoff, and I saw that I was like, nobody asked for this. Like nobody asked for this. And if we played Sanitana next week, I could have lived with that. But we play Inter. I was like, the momentum in the team is so good. Just play your best players. Get it over with. If you want to make a sub, you sub him off. Just give him, like, keep the good feel factor in that team. Keep that alive. Keep that burning. And that was before kick. I was like, I don't like it. I don't. The moment of the season, I don't think we're in a position to hand out quote unquote charity minutes. We play once a week. I saw excuses. He needs to rest. Yildiz doesn't play 90 minutes. We
Yeah.
play once a week. I'm not sure what rest we're talking about here. It's very confusing. When I saw that, I was like, fine, I'm gonna support Milik. Like we're probably gonna win again, but I would have not done that just because of the game that's next Sunday. And I was like, just keep that momentum going with Yildiz, who's playing well, and we will come back on Yildiz because Allegri had a stinker at post game, in my opinion. But what do you think? Like, do you think it's quote unquote a
Um,
mistake, regardless of the red card?
I go back to what I said earlier, and I feel that's another example of it. When I talk about a few games of evidence that Miretti and Kostic do not gel well, when have we had a strong showing with two strikers playing up top? Like we've said for so long, like
Not
it
yet.
has to be a mix. One
Yeah.
of Chiesa, one of Yildiz, and I would honestly use Weah up there as an alternative to one of those guys rather than play two strikers. Any combination we've seen, Milik and Vlahovic, Milik and Keane, Keane and Vlahovic, it just doesn't work. And that's another way that Max was playing with fire. But I agree with you. If still that error doesn't take place, we probably get away with it. But he got caught playing with fire and he didn't change it after that situation happened in the 15th minute. And we got stung. We got stung. So for me, it's you could in a sense say it was a mistake just because of the fact that it was one of the reasons he was going to something that we had evidence leading into this game. And it was a big game. It was against Empoli and whatnot, but you wanted those 3 points. Like you need to keep the pressure on. You need to keep going into there. And we kind of, again, still, you'll never bank on a player getting sent off in the 18th
No.
minute. And ultimately, I think, like I said, overall, we would have got through this. But the way the game was playing out and no adjustments, and the adjustments that did take place and how late some of them were, that to me is more of the criticism for Max than what he actually did to start the game. So for me, it's still in-game adjustments and stuff that I fault more. You just can't bank on somebody doing that, and nobody should ever be doing that in a
Yeah.
game of that magnitude with the race that we're in. And it's just it's brutal. And people that want to protect the player or everything like that, look, it's not anything that isn't true. Like I said earlier, like, yeah, I called him a donkey because he was in that game. That's a donkey move, but does it mean he can't be a hero tomorrow? No. That's the beauty of sports, that these things happen, these mistakes happen. We got to shrug it off and refocus and go into next week. And if you want to take a look at the positive and the upbeat side of things, I said it on the show today, maybe we needed that. Maybe we would have went in there too confident, and maybe this is something that Max needed to realize that, you know what, this hole on the left, like, it can't happen. And Rabiot will be back, and Danilo will be back, etc. And Chiesa should be back off the bench. Yildiz should be starting, no question. But as a team, maybe we would have went into that a little too overconfident. And maybe we needed this draw, and the draw isn't the worst case scenario, okay? Even though it could feel that way, but it isn't. And maybe we needed that to go into that game to really sharpen up and say, look,
No.
we can't piss this away, right? So there's something to be said for that.
On You touch on Kostic and Miretti, and Allegri will learn. I think that's my issue. He's not learning from it. I think that's my issue, because Kostic, I saw the stats. He created the most chances, and I'm like, what does the eye test tell you? Because Leao was up there. If you ask Milan fans, they're gonna tell you Leao's not having a good season. Like the real
Yeah.
honest Milan fans, Kostic is not having a good season. That's just what it is. He's not having a good season, but he keeps giving him minutes week in, week out. Even when we're winning games, he brings in Junior. Junior, but he plays him in midfield, and he keeps
Yeah.
Kostic in. Like those things, I'm like, no. Like, I don't know what he's hoping for with Kostic, that he pops up, and even if he gets an assist here and there, it's not going to change anything. Like, he doesn't impact the game. And it is an issue. Like, it is just an issue. It is like what it is. And the subs, they came in too late. Like, he'll display like 12 minutes. And I was like, that's kind of criminal to me. Like, that's really unbelievable to me. And
Yeah.
we move on now to the post game, but because I think there Allegri had a stinker, man. Like, he really had a stinker. I don't care if he meant it, but he said it on like, he said it post game. He said it in the presser, and then in the post walkout. I have to say, like, he keep talking about Yildiz, and I was like, this was not needed at all. Like, nobody needed these comments, because he said he was good. He was good sitting on the bench first. I was like, okay, joke. I guess I'll take it, you know. And then he went on saying, I will make the same decision. I will play Milik again. And then he added to it, you know what? He needed a mental rest because I saw him a bit, quote unquote, flying. The media was hyping him up, and he didn't actually had a good game against Lecce. I was like, no, that's a lie. You're going a bit overboard now just to avoid the situation that what has been created in the game with the Milik decision, the red card. You're trying to divert the attention. Yildiz did not had a poor game against Lecce. Like he didn't. I don't think anyone came out of that Lecce game and was like, "Ew, Yildiz, that wasn't a good game." That wasn't. He played a good game against Lecce. Like he was crucial to that first goal as well. Like he drove that ball, and
I
to
think
now come back and say he wasn't good against Lecce, and then he added the newspapers were hyping him up. I'm like, he's playing well. What do you want the newspapers to do? Slate him? Like he's playing well. Like, are you now gonna pull players because they're playing well? Because that kind of felt a bit like what he was trying to say. And then obviously, the moment you bring that up, you have people saying, "Oh, but he sees him in training," and hey, he can see in training whatever we want. We've seen him on the pitch, and without Yildiz, the last couple of weeks, we would have been in massive trouble. Like we would have been in massive trouble. So what he did post game, I was like, you had a stinker. There was no need to bring these things up. There was no need to
yeah.
do that. And I'm not sure why he did that. The only reason I was like, he didn't like he wanted to avoid the real conversation that needed to be held. You know, because he didn't really talk about me. Like he said, I will play him again. Period. Next question. And then he kind of stomped on Yildiz. Like that's the feeling I have, and I was like, I didn't like that. That was not needed at all.
It was it's a little bit weird. I mean, all he said with Milik was he needed the physicality against Empoli's low block, and the crazy thing was you didn't know what to get out of Empoli because Nicola just came in there. They beat Monza 3-0, but he switched them up to a 3-5-2.
Yeah,
I said going into this game, anytime teams mirror us, it's got a recipe for trouble in terms of creation, which would also signal not going to that two-man striker front if they were in fact going to follow up Monza the exact same way, which we all expected, which was 3-5-2, which means you will see five across the back, which makes a player like Yildiz very important. So ultimately, like I said, and you started off the game, it is what it is, what happened and everything, but you got to react. And I think there was a large portion of that game where these guys were unable to really hurt Empoli.
yeah,
And the only ones that seemed to be able to do it were McKennie and Cambiaso. And Cambiaso, that is a massive positive that comes out of that game. This guy is extremely versatile and he is really, really good. That comes out as a positive. But overall, yeah, even if you don't get it right from the start, and whatever he said about Yildiz, I just kind of have to yeah, I mean, I don't agree. I just flat out don't agree with what he said, and I don't really understand saying it really, other than the fact that yeah, he feels the kid's getting a big head about it, and he wants to try and bring him back down to ground. But regardless, he missed it in making the adjustments in the game, and Yildiz absolutely should have been brought on earlier, in my
yeah.
opinion.
And
You know,
you can calm down a player, but like I think that you need to do in private. You don't need to say, remember last week he wasn't good. I was like, whoa. I was watching a live. I was like, whoa, where did that came from? Because I
yeah,
remember Locatelli come out of the game and he's unbelievable, Yildiz. Like he again today he was good. And I was like, that was so unnecessary in my opinion. And it's not. I don't want to make a big deal out of it, but I was
yeah.
like, it just fitted the evening.
I
The
thought he had
decision.
a soft first half, but I thought it was more because him and Moretti were getting in each other's way.
Yeah, first
And he
half. Yeah,
had like, maybe only 20 touches in the first half, whatever. But I thought like once Moretti left the game in the second half there against, that's when you saw Yildiz starting to hit those pockets and then he started cooking. So I just think between the two of them, it just wasn't gelling or meshing, right? But
yeah.
I don't think I'd say he had a bad game by any means. So, like I said, I just don't agree with that statement, right?
No,
And I
no.
would probably tend to agree with you that if he did feel that way and he was going to say it, I'd probably just not say he had a bad game when I don't believe it's true to the media, to maybe shut them down on something and just say, I made a decision. I backed that decision. I would do it again. I don't think you need to getting into saying, so and so was bad or something. Just say I made a decision. I
Yeah,
stuck with it. And yeah, maybe it was the wrong decision. But I do agree with his other quote that ghost cities are built in hindsight, because
I agree with
ultimately
that as well.
you made a call. We can't dwell on it. Like I said, we got to just refocus and shift gears into the big one coming up. And it is what it is, right? And I don't think Yildiz, based on we'll have to see the reaction and everything and see if he gets fired up. But I think he'll be just fine. I expect him to start against Inter, because I don't think you can start Chiesa if he hasn't been in several games coming
No,
into.
I
I think
agree.
he'll,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, I think he'll come off the bench, and I think Yildiz will be ready, and I think Yildiz will be the Yildiz we expect to, and it'll look better with Adrian Rabiot there behind. And I think if we go into this two-man pivot with Loca and Rabiot, I think it'll be cooking for us. And I think it's going to be a different game. And I have no fears about Keenan Yildiz whatsoever. So I think we have to see the reaction now from the player, but I think it'll be positive. I really
I
do.
agree. I agree with that. Um, really quickly before we move on to the big question, because the title of the show is fans not being realistic. um, I will talk from my perspective, just in general. My my expectation was this: what we are doing this season. That was my expectation. So I cannot, like, I was realistic in my opinion. Like, I was realistic, but that doesn't mean I will not have critique on what's happening. Because if we don't win the league, I'm gonna sit back because I don't know. I personally, I don't care if you finish second, third, or fourth. It's top four. I want to win because in years to come, I will not remember us finishing second. That's how I see it. So I don't really care about that. If we don't win the league, I want to see, has there been enough progression to sit back and say that's sustainable to build on. That's my only critique. And when I watch what we do this season, and the points are good, we are picking up the points. That's why we're in a title race. I don't see enough progression, like sustainable progression, we can build on, or like something that's out there. And I'm like, this is gonna last for many years to come. That's my only issue. Like, we don't have things to fall back on. When teams go back down to 10 men, it's like we don't have, like, it's crossing. It's a lot of those things are crossing, and like all of these things, it does worry me. So are we being, like, our fans in general being unrealistic with the expectations this season? Because top four, the club can say it is like, that's not an expectation. That's just default. Like, you're at Juve, you're on 9 billion euros a season. I don't want to hear top four is the goal. You made it last season as well, and with everything that was going on with points deduction, I'm not gonna accept that. When he came out yesterday again and he said, uh, I want to see how much points you are at fifth. I'm like, you're at 20 points ahead. I'm just making up. Like, it's a bunch of points. Like, forget about it. Nobody, like, no fan wants to hear about top four at this moment in time. Like, nobody's gonna accept that. You're in a title race. That's the reality. Things change. So do you think fans are being unrealistic about, if we don't win the league? I'm not saying if we don't win the league, okay, I will not fire Allegri if we don't win the league. That's not the reason I would move on from Allegri, to make it my point clear. But in general, do you think fans are being very unrealistic this season?
No, because the results are there. I got, like, this is there's a lot to dissect in this kind of topic and everything. But as far as Allegri goes and continuing on, I mean, there's a massive jump from the previous two seasons to this season. It can't be denied. And uh, I think he does deserve credit, and I think he does deserve respect in terms of the statements and constantly saying top four. I look at it in a different way. I look at it in a sense that I don't mind him saying that, because the truth is, we all know the truth. We all know we're in the title race. Everybody knows that. And I look at it from a respect standpoint. And, you know, media, everybody, into whatever, until the point where they try to change it and twist it and put the pressure on us. But everybody didn't put us in there at the start of the season, despite playing one competition. Nobody put us in there. Nobody was giving us respect. Everybody was still disrespecting Max Allegri. Okay. And everybody was still talking about his job, all this. I look at it from a respect standpoint. He is not allowing them to put the pressure on us and our players. By saying that consistently, I look at it from that. He is not letting them dictate the narrative. Of course, he knows we're in a title race. The players know it because they say it. Max knows it, whatever, but he's not letting the media or even Inter change that narrative. Okay. And with what they're saying and everything, I actually had this discussion with somebody yesterday. I can't think of another time Max has been so direct at an opponent in terms of what he's saying and everything that he's going at about it with this whole Inter thing and the thieves and the guards and the touchy and all this, and they're touchy, and I shouldn't say this, like I've never seen him so direct about something, but for me it's about a respect thing. And I think last year, even the year prior, like I don't think he had too many people in his corner, and he dealt everything alone, yes, last season. And I'm just looking at it from a respect standpoint. I honestly, because we know the truth, I don't really get bothered by it. And I actually kind of like it because it's irking everybody else so much. So I mean, just keep going with it. Just keep going with it. It's not affecting our players. They know what's at hand. They know what's going on. So I'm okay with it from a respect standpoint. Everybody else said didn't expect us to be in there, was disrespecting Max Allegri, said what we're doing is unsustainable. And now he's like, now you want to shift it and take the pressure off us? No, it's Inter's to lose. It always has been. It always will be. What we're trying to do is something pretty special when you look at still one competition or not. Look at what happens to this team when we lose one midfielder, Adrian Rabiot. We are fighting a depth situation now. We know what happened with Pogba and Fajoli. You want to look at the game. Yeah, yesterday's a prime example. Like, so for me, as far as sustainable is what we're doing sustainable long term, it kind of goes back to the same thing we faced this season when we were getting the Cortomuso victories and stuff. I said the only thing that makes it unsustainable right now is the fact that we're not bagging the goals, and we should be bagging more goals. But all of a sudden, when the team starts bagging those goals, it's not a question of system. It's not a question of approach. It's not a question of everything. For me, it's balance. And we lack that balance because we don't have the depth right now, which is an ongoing process with our roster. And we did have unfortunate situations with Pogba and Fajoli. For me, what we're doing right now is still building who we are. And then from there, the talent needs to be brought up. We know this. For me, the young guys, I have some lenience towards them, but we have to be realistic. This team is Juventus. We need ready now players to come in and help boost that. So it's hard to say, obviously, what we're doing right now or what we have right now is not sustainable because we still need more quality. We still need more quality on this side. But ultimately, I think we've jumped leaps and bounds. And I wouldn't be surprised if this game and what happens in the 15th minute in the previous two seasons, I think we come out with a L. I really do.
Yeah, I think we would have lost that game. I think Chesney said the same thing. Like we would have probably lost that game if it was last season. So I agree with that part. Let's move on to the final topic of this part of the show, and that was my tweet about pressure. And I will read it out first. Then will I try to explain the context and the wording. Because I think that was kind of maybe the issue here. I said, I said that there is less pressure at Club X compared to Juve. Excuse is the biggest myth out there. If a player has the qualities, it will show if put in the right situation. Has nothing to do with pressure. Now, this was in the context, excuse me, for Sule, because at that moment in time, it was all, oh, he's doing it at Frosinone and all those things. That's why I put it out there. When I said in the right situation, I mean not play wing back if you're a right winger. If you know what I mean. That's what I meant with that part. And when I say has the qualities, I mean obviously talent, but also the right mindset. That's what I meant with it. That was my tweet, and it was an opinion, by the way. It wasn't a fact. That's like, it was my opinion. Like, people were saying it's not true, or like, that's not a fact. I never said it was a fact. Like, a fact is Vlahovic scored 6 goals in 5 games. Like, if I tweet that out, it's a fact. Like, this was an opinion, and what I meant with that, I know there's more pressure at Juve than at Frosinone. Frosinone will never make front page news. They're not going to make it. I get that point. I get that. What I was trying to say, if you're good enough, you're going to make it. You're just going to make it at the club. You are going to make it,
Yeah.
That's the only thing I was trying to say. If you're not good enough, the club will weed you out, or you're just going to be a fringe player, but nobody really cares about. Like, I wasn't insinuating that about role players. Like, I wasn't saying that. And it was just in the atmosphere of, Sule hasn't got a fair shot at the club. So you cannot say, oh, it's a Frosinone. I'm like, we don't know if he's going to make it or not make it until he gets a fair shot. And a fair shot is not playing wing back or play well against Frosinone, Verona, being benched against Napoli. I've seen it live, trying to man mark an entire midfield from Napoli. I was like, that's a bit sad to watch. That's what I meant with, in the right situation, all those things. But I do know, I'm going to agree with a lot of things you're going to say, by the way. I know what you're going to say, but I'm going to agree with a lot of things you're going to say. Miretti, for example, really quickly, I believe he will make it at the club even without a loan. That's the mindset I had. I believe he will make it at the club even without a loan. I know it's not coming off now. I know it's not, like, he's not playing well, but I believe even without a loan, if put in the right situation, and with right situation, I mean, go back to his first game when he made his debut, and he was just picking up the balls and spreading it, basically, not playing that advanced or trying to link up with Kostic, who's very, like, Miretti, his best games are with Cambiasso and Kid, with mobile players around him, players who make runs and all those things. That's all the things he needs to do better individually. I get it. But I believe Miretti will make it even without a loan, because I believe he's made out of the right stuff. That's the atmosphere. I tweeted that out on I don't know what it was, on a very late Monday evening, I think. Where you go?
So I think the part that sticks out in that tweet that takes away is saying that the pressure thing is a myth. That's the part that
I get
is what overshadows the entire tweet. So from that point on, I say it's the number one question we ask of players when we're about to sign them is, can they do this at Juventus? Should we take a chance on this young guy? It's not the same. And I've always believed that. And I think it's evident because the players themselves say it. And we've seen Dusan Vlahovic go through this. And then you hear the legends talking about it. Guys that have been there, that have done that. Ravanelli says it is night and day when you put on that shirt. And I just, it is. And I mean, even if we talk about real life in general, like, I can go to the field behind my house and take PKs all day and bury them. If you put me in front of a stadium with 40,000 people and like 3 points is on the line for one of the biggest clubs in Italy, I think I would feel a little bit differently than doing that. You know what I mean? Like, pressure is a real thing in life. So that's the part of the tweet that I think is what caused chaos in your life. But just for a brief moment of time, it was all good. Then you got to your point, and your point I do agree with. I do agree with the ultimate point of what you're trying to say. That is that if a player is good enough, it will happen and he will make it. What the question becomes is, when we're looking at these guys, are they good enough? And that's what the question is going to be. Now, your stance on, so for Sule, and this is where we're going to be clashing on different sides, because Yildiz didn't have much of anything for a chance, and it came through like that. Okay. And I know we're going to argue the position thing. However, Sule did have opportunities in a 4-3-3 playing as a winger. He had opportunities, free roaming player that could have been interpreted however he wanted to when he substituted Di Maria on several occasions during last season. So it's like, I just think that so little of his game, and I still have way more to add on Sule as to why I think we should sell him, but it's whether it's not a fair chance or whatever, I think that there's guys that have had less opportunities where more of their game has come through. And Miretti, I will add into this as we get further on. But for Sule, one of the big things I look at when we're talking about number one, if we can both acknowledge that it is night and day playing for Frosinone, then it is Juventus. The other thing is he does have 9 goals to his name here. I believe 4 of them are against Cagliari, and I believe 3 of them are PKs. And if you take teams 1 to 7, he in the table, he has done absolutely nothing against them. So for me, it's like I bring up doubts because it is not the same. And the thing that might hurt him in my mind, and I could end up being completely wrong about Sule, but the thing in my mind is that I remember not a whole lot coming out in his game with us in the positions that I think he should be showing more. I'm not going to look at the wingback opportunities and think anything of it, but I am going to look at the moments when he replaced directly Di Maria in a free roaming position that he could have played in whatever manner he wanted to. If he wanted to drift from the right, if he wanted to be central as trequartista, he had that freedom because he directly replaced Di Maria. So for me, these things together and the fact that it's pure profit and everything like that, I ask myself, can he do it? And I do have doubts about that. When it comes to Miretti, I'm uh, I'm on different sides with you because I think if he has a shot at doing it with Juve, it needs to be like he needs to go out on loan and really, really hone in because the same issues that he had, even through the good spells and the good stuff that does come through, they were still there. And that hasn't really, like, the decision making hasn't increased like whatsoever for me. So like we're kind of on different things with that, but fire away, man. Like I know we were going to be on opposite sides on this one for those two players, but
Yeah. The Sule one, we will probably have that on another show, that debate, because further on, I do think the club will sell, by the way, because it's Plus Valenza, but we will have a discussion on that later
yeah.
on. We're going to wrap up this part because that was kind of it. Another part will come out. It's going to be shorter, but it's going to be in preview for the Inter game on Sunday. So that's going to be in the next one. I'm not gonna say goodbye because I'm gonna record a new video in a few moments. Just keep in mind, second part will be out on Thursday. So yeah, this is the first part. Excuse me. See you guys on Thursday for the preview.